Your forecast this week for the Dakotas and Minnesota has a couple more days of some severe weather, especially across the western parts of the Dakotas, before things begin to quiet down towards the back end of the week. So going into Monday at the mid-levels, we continue to have this southwest to sort of westerly flow, especially across the southwestern parts of South Dakota. Now, some of that moisture should start working its way back into the region a little bit, as you can kind of see some of these wind barbs pulling that moisture up into the western part of South Dakota, into Wyoming and Montana as well. Moisture is going to continue on moving northward into Tuesday, and that's going to occur out ahead of this little system that's going to be ejecting out of the mountains and moving from west to east. So it looks like as we get into Monday afternoon and Monday evening, we're actually going to have a fair amount of CAPE down in the southwestern part of South Dakota. You can see those numbers getting up to the 1800s joule per kilogram, and that's pretty good for severe thunderstorm activity, especially down in that part of our area. And actually, as we go into Tuesday, those CAPE values rise a little more, even getting into the 2000s to perhaps even 3000s if those dew points are able to rise enough across that area. And so because of these ingredients, the Storms Prediction Center for Monday has put in a marginal risk and a slight risk of severe weather. So this is a 1 out of 5 and a 2 out of 5. The storms mainly will have the hail associated with it. Now, these storms are expected to mainly have some large hail associated with it, some strong damaging winds, but there is an isolated chance of a tornado out there as well. And then for Tuesday right now, there's only a marginal risk, so that's only a 1 out of 5 across this region. But I would expect as we get into Monday and perhaps Monday night, they'll probably add on a slight risk, a 2 out of 5 in there somewhere. We're just going to have to get a little closer to that time frame before they determine where exactly that's going to lie. And so getting into the timing a little more, here we are Monday afternoon right around 4 o'clock, and you can see the possibility of a few storms starting to pop up even across northern parts of North Dakota, as we have a little cold pool up there that might allow some of these storms to develop up there. But mainly we're looking at, because we have the higher dew points and the stronger southerly winds, we have those mid-level winds across here as well. Down in the southwestern part of South Dakota, that's where our better chance will be for those severe storms. And mainly we're looking like that's going to occur into the evening and overnight hours, as we're looking at these storms developing into Montana and Wyoming, and then moving into the region and basically over the Black Hills and pushed down to the southeast, as they often do through the overnight hours. Now, of course, you notice these storms that fired further north have died off through the overnight hours Monday night. They lose that heating and those storms die off. These are a little more guided by those mid-level winds, and they're able to maintain. They're not expected to be severe once they reach the central part of the state, but there might be a few rumbles of thunder and some rain showers lingering on into early Tuesday morning. Now, again, as we get into Tuesday afternoon, the upper levels are a little bit cooler, so that's going to allow some of these storms to pop. Now, there might be an isolated storm here or there that might be briefly severe with 1-inch hail, but it's just going to reach that bottom mark of the severe weather, and so not a whole lot to be concerned with. But just don't be surprised if you get a severe warning or two on Tuesday. But the better chance, as we saw earlier, because that marginal risk was somewhere within this region, we have this little system that's pulling out, that's got a trough that's moving across the area. We've got some higher dew points out there. And of course, as we mentioned before, those mid-level winds are helping aid some of these storms. So these storms could fire up once again across Montana and Wyoming, and then move into western parts of the Dakotas through the evening and overnight hours. Now, some of these could linger into about the midnight time frame and kind of make it into western, or kind of make it into central parts of the Dakotas before they really diminish. And because we do have this mid-level wave that continues to push eastward along with it, that should help drive some of these storms. Some of those storms may last and persist into eastern parts of South Dakota before they completely die off. Now, as you see, as we get into the middle part of the week, Wednesday here, we still continue to have some decent winds across southern South Dakota at the mid-levels, and then going into Thursday afternoon. Again, still not too bad. We got some winds moving across central and eastern South Dakota and into southern Minnesota. We also have this cold pool of air, this little circulation up here that's kind of dumbbelling around across the northern parts of our region. So Wednesday night again, wouldn't be surprised if we see a few more storms fire up across the western parts of the Dakotas. and then move southeastward before diminishing around that midnight time frame. You might have a few storms again firing off up in the north during the afternoon, maybe an outside chance of an isolated severe. And then as we get into Thursday, one more day of kind of that, maybe a few storms a little bit further east because some of those stronger winds are now pushing more into central and eastern parts of South Dakota and into southern Minnesota. So perhaps we have a few stronger storms that fire up down there before we get into Friday and Saturday and things really begin to kind of quiet down as we lose those upper level winds and we have that high pressure begin to settle overhead. All right, forecasted highs for the week, not looking too bad. Here we are Monday, generally in the mid 70s to around the low to mid 80s for Monday. Tuesday, basically about the same, just a little different as to where some of the 80s are going to wind up, mainly across Minnesota. Mid 70s across portions of North Dakota. Wednesday, maybe some low 70s over the lakes country of Minnesota, but those 80s remain down in the south, maybe even into the upper 80s across the far southeast. Thursday, a bit of a repeat, maybe a little bit warmer up in the lakes country. Friday, mid 70s to the north, 80s to the south. And Saturday, things cool off a little bit down in the south as we're looking at mainly 70s once we get into Saturday, and actually even into Sunday as well. So we have a couple of days to keep our eye on, especially early in the week across western parts of the Dakotas, especially across southwest South Dakota. Those guys are just kind of in the bullseye this year, and they're going to continue to be over the next few days. And then, of course, we quiet down towards the back half of the week. And it's looking like a pretty good weekend next weekend. So if you're starting off your 4th of July early next weekend, it looks to be like a pretty nice one. So thank God for that. All right, everybody, for Region Weather Live, I am meteorologist Brad Warner, and everybody have a good day.